The rhythmic sound of sneakers hitting the track echoed in the crisp morning air. Each step was deliberate, each breath measured. At the center of it all was Jasmine Carter, a 26-year-old sprinter with an intensity that made even seasoned coaches stop and watch. Standing at 5 feet 7 inches with an athletic build, Jasmine was a picture of discipline. Muscles carved from years of relentless training, her dark skin glistening with sweat under the sun. Her thick, coiled hair was always braided back tightly, keeping distractions away. She moved with purpose, her eyes sharp and unyielding, the kind that made people hesitate before doubting her abilities. Jasmine wasn't just another athlete. She was a force in the world of track and field. Born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, she had spent her entire life defying expectations. From the moment she first sprinted across her elementary school playground, her talent had been undeniable. By high school, she was setting state records. By college, she was breaking national ones. But talent alone wasn't enough. Jasmine had learned the hard way that being a black woman in the world of professional athletics meant proving herself over and over again. No matter how many medals she won, there were always whispers. She's just naturally fast. She doesn't have the discipline. She got here because of diversity quotas. Jasmine knew the truth. She was where she was because she had worked harder than anyone else. Today, she was preparing for the most important race of her life. The 100-meter dash at the World Athletics Championship. The world record was within reach, and she was determined to claim it. Jasmine's days were a carefully crafted routine of discipline and endurance. She woke up at 5 a.m. sharp, her body accustomed to the routine. After a protein-packed breakfast, she headed to the track for her first training session. Her warm-up was precise, dynamic stretches, high knees, and explosive starts. Her coach, Marcus Reynolds, watched from the sidelines, stopwatch in hand, yelling out times and corrections. "Stay low in your start, Jasmine. You need that extra half second," he barked as she exploded from the starting blocks. Her training was brutal. Sprint drills, weight training, resistance work. Every minute of her day was optimized for speed. She studied footage of past races, analyzing what worked and what didn't. In the afternoons, she trained in altitude chambers to improve endurance. Mental toughness exercises were as crucial as the physical. Visualization, breathing techniques, and cold therapy were all part of the regimen. By evening, her body was screaming in exhaustion, but she welcomed the pain. Pain meant progress. The only break in her routine came from video calls with her mother and younger sister, Leah. Her family was her anchor, her biggest support system. Her mother's voice was always filled with warmth. "Baby, just run your race. You've been running since the day you could walk." Her little sister, barely 12, idolized her. "Jazz, when you win, can you wear my lucky bracelet?" Jasmine never missed a call, no matter how tired she was. The stadium in Budapest was electric. It was the final week of the World Athletics Championship, and the energy was palpable. Massive banners hung from the rafters, showcasing the faces of top competitors. Jasmine's face was among them, strong, determined, ready. The track itself gleamed under the stadium lights. The lanes, marked in crisp white, felt like sacred ground to Jasmine. The air was thick with anticipation, the scent of rubber and sweat mixing with the distant aroma of stadium food. The roaring crowd added to the surreal energy. The athletes' warm-up area was its own battlefield. Jasmine had trained herself to tune out the noise, but she could feel the tension radiating off her competitors. Some exchanged friendly nods. Others, like Sophia Lindholm, barely acknowledged her presence. Sophia was a blonde, 6-foot-tall sprinter from Sweden, a multiple-time champion with a reputation for her cutthroat attitude. She was good, but she wasn't Jasmine. The media area buzzed with reporters, camera flashes going off like strobe lights. Some journalists tried to push their way toward Jasmine, asking about her chances of breaking the record. She gave measured responses, keeping her focus intact. The coaches' section was packed, with national teams huddled in discussion. Marcus stood with his arms crossed, watching Jasmine like a hawk. He knew what this race meant, not just for her, but for every young black girl who had ever been told they weren't good enough. As she laced up her spikes, Jasmine felt the weight of history on her shoulders. Jasmine could feel Sophia's eyes on her from across the warm-up area. She turned slightly, catching a glimpse of the other woman's expression. Cold, calculating, almost dismissive. Sophia had made her stance clear in interviews. She had subtly downplayed Jasmine's achievements, implying that certain athletes had an unfair advantage due to genetics. She had never named Jasmine outright, but the message had been clear. Now, as they stood on the same track, the silent battle had already begun. Jasmine clenched her jaw and took a deep breath. She wouldn't let this get to her. She had faced people like Sophia her entire life. Instead of reacting, she turned her focus inward. The only thing that mattered was the race. But deep down, she knew this wasn't just about speed anymore. This was about proving a point. The record was within reach, and history was about to be made. The finals of the 100-meter dash were moments away. The stadium pulsed with anticipation as thousands of spectators filled the seats, their voices blending into a deafening roar. Camera flashes flickered like stars in a storm, and the scent of sweat and adrenaline clung to the air. Jasmine stood at the starting line, her fingers lightly grazing the textured rubber track. She took a deep breath, feeling her heart hammer against her chest. This was it, the moment she had trained for her entire life. A voice crackled over the stadium speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the women's 100-meter finals. The world is watching as these elite athletes prepare to make history." Jasmine barely heard the announcer. Her focus was razor-sharp. To her right stood Sophia Lindholm, stretching her long legs with an air of effortless confidence. Jasmine didn't look at her, but she felt her presence. Then, the moment of disruption came. Sophia's voice was low, just enough for Jasmine to hear over the noise. "You know, Carter, no matter what happens today, some records just don't belong to certain people." Jasmine's muscles tensed. She turned her head slightly, meeting Sophia's gaze. The woman's blue eyes were unreadable, her smirk barely there. Jasmine forced herself to exhale slowly. She would not take the bait. The officials signaled for the athletes to step into their blocks. Jasmine crouched down, positioning herself. The starting gun was raised. A hush fell over the stadium. Bang! She launched forward like a bullet. Protagonist reaction, 300 words. The moment Jasmine's feet left the blocks, everything else disappeared. It was just her and the track. She felt explosive power surge through her legs, each stride perfectly measured, her arms pumping in sync. The crowd blurred into white noise, and for the first time in days, she wasn't thinking about Sophia, or the pressure, or even the record. She was running. Halfway down the track, she felt Sophia right beside her. They were neck and neck, the gap between them razor-thin. Jasmine pushed harder. She could feel the energy shifting. She was gaining ground. In the final 20 meters, something incredible happened. Sophia started to fade. Jasmine surged forward, feeling her body reach a speed it had never reached before. Then, the finish line. She crossed it, her chest hitting the tape. A half-second later, the scoreboard flashed. Jasmine Carter, 10.48 seconds. World record. The crowd erupted into chaos. Impact on routine. Jasmine gasped for air, hands on her knees. Had she really done it? The realization struck when she looked up at the screen again. Her name glowed in gold, the words "world record" blinking beside it. She had done it. She had just rewritten history. The noise of the crowd crashed over her like a tidal wave. Cameras swarmed, flashes blinding. Her coach, Marcus, was jumping, screaming, his voice hoarse as he shoved past security to reach her. "Jasmine, you did it, kid. You broke the damn record." She barely had time to process before a microphone was in her face. "Jasmine Carter, you've just shattered the world record in the 100-meter dash. What's going through your mind right now?" She opened her mouth, still panting. She stopped. A movement caught her eye. Sophia. She had finished second, a full 0.15 seconds behind Jasmine, a massive gap in sprinting. But instead of congratulating her, Sophia turned away. As Jasmine extended her hand, Sophia ignored it. The cameras caught it all. The world had just watched a historic moment, followed by a bitter refusal to acknowledge it. The air in the stadium was thick with tension. The moment Sophia turned away from Jasmine's outstretched hand, a hush rippled through the crowd, followed by a wave of murmurs. The cameras captured everything: Jasmine's poised professionalism and Sophia's blatant dismissal. Jasmine lowered her hand slowly, schooling her expression into something neutral. But inside, a storm brewed. Reporters were already buzzing. Did Sophia Lindholm just refuse to shake hands with the new world record holder? Unbelievable. Jasmine Carter just made history, and Sophia's response is walking away. Jasmine clenched her jaw, forcing herself to focus as the official stepped forward to place the gold medal around her neck. The weight of it was both literal and symbolic. She had earned this. As the national anthem played, she stood tall, but she could feel Sophia's cold presence just a step below on the silver medal podium. The Swedish athlete stared straight ahead, jaw tight, arms crossed. The cameras flicked between them, capturing every second of the uncomfortable dynamic. And then, the moment that took everything to the next level. During the post-race press conference, a journalist raised his hand. "Sophia, your thoughts on today's race?" Sophia, still in her sweaty uniform, forced a tight smile. "Jasmine ran well, but records come and go. Some of us have to work harder than others to get here." The room went silent. Jasmine's eyes snapped to Sophia, her chest tightening. Did she really just say that? The journalist's eyebrows shot up. "Are you suggesting Jasmine didn't work as hard as you?" Sophia shrugged. "I'm saying some people have advantages. We all know sprinting favors certain body types." Jasmine's fingers dug into her medal. The world had just watched her make history, and now, Sophia was trying to undermine it. Back in the athletes' locker room, Jasmine was seething. Her coach, Marcus Reynolds, stormed in behind her. "She's got some nerve," he growled, throwing his cap onto a bench. "Advantages? Jasmine, you just ran the cleanest, fastest race of your life. There's no advantage besides your damn hard work." Jasmine exhaled slowly, still gripping her medal. "I knew she didn't respect me, but this? She basically just told the world I don't deserve this record." Another voice cut in, her best friend and fellow sprinter, Tasha Evans. "Girl, I swear, I almost threw my water bottle at the tee." Tasha crossed her arms. "She's just salty 'cause she lost. She thought she was untouchable." Jasmine let out a short laugh, but her frustration remained. "I should be celebrating right now, not dealing with this nonsense." Tasha nodded. "And you still should. But don't let her win by letting this ruin your moment." Jasmine sighed. She knew Tasha was right, but it was hard to ignore the headlines already forming. Would the world see her as the new record holder, or just another controversy? That night, Jasmine sat in her hotel room, staring at her phone. Her social media had exploded. Some messages were pure love. Jasmine Carter just cemented herself as a legend. This woman just made history. Put some respect on her name. But others were ugly. Sophia was robbed. Of course she broke the record. Look at her build. Unfair advantage. Just another overhyped athlete. The record won't last. Jasmine shut off her phone, frustration boiling in her chest. Why couldn't she just have this moment? She had trained for years, sacrificed everything for this race. She didn't drink, didn't party, didn't have a normal social life. Her entire existence was track and field. And yet, people were acting like this was just handed to her. She thought about all the young black girls who had messaged her over the years, telling her she was their inspiration. What message did this send to them? That no matter how much they achieved, people would still try to discredit them? A knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. She opened it to find Marcus standing there. He didn't say much, just handed her his laptop. "Press play," he said. Confused, Jasmine sat back on her bed and did as he asked. A video interview from earlier that evening popped up. It was Sophia, speaking to a Swedish reporter. "I don't regret my words," she said, her tone firm. "I stand by what I said. The sport has changed, and I think it's fair to discuss whether physical advantages play a role." Jasmine's stomach tightened. Marcus leaned against the doorframe. "She's doubling down, Jazz. She's not gonna take this back." Jasmine shut the laptop, breathing deep. She had two choices. Let this eat her up, or make sure the world never forgot her name. Jasmine made her decision right then and there. She wasn't going to argue, wasn't going to let Sophia's words dictate her legacy. She was going to let her records do the talking. And if people wanted to debate whether she deserved it, she'd break another damn record. The next morning, she woke up early and went straight to the track. Not for another race, not for the cameras, but for herself. As she sprinted down the empty stadium track, she let go of the noise, the doubt, the frustration. She had one job now: to become so undeniably great that no one could ever erase her name from history. And deep down, she knew this battle wasn't over yet. The backlash continued over the next few days, and the media frenzy intensified. Jasmine's world record should have been the only headline, but instead, every sports network and social media platform was consumed with Sophia's comments. Some defended Jasmine, calling out the racial undertones of Sophia's remarks. Others, particularly in conservative sports circles, echoed Sophia's claims, debating whether physical attributes gave certain athletes an unfair edge. Jasmine's name was everywhere, but for the wrong reasons. Then came the moment that changed everything. She was sitting in a studio, preparing for a live television interview on one of the biggest sports networks in the country. She had debated whether to even do it, but Marcus had convinced her. "This isn't just about Sophia," he had said. "This is about every black athlete who's ever had their success questioned. You have a chance to set the record straight." Jasmine took a deep breath as the cameras rolled. The interviewer, a polished woman in a navy blue blazer, smiled at her. "Jasmine, first of all, congratulations on your world record." "Thank you," Jasmine said, keeping her voice calm and professional. "Let's get straight to it. Your performance was historic, but the conversation has been dominated by Sophia Lindholm's remarks. Do you have a response?" Jasmine folded her hands in her lap. She had rehearsed her answer, but now that she was here, she decided to speak from the heart instead. "I think it's sad," she said simply. "I worked for this my entire life. I trained for years, I sacrificed so much, and instead of celebrating that, people want to debate whether I deserve it. But I know one thing: records don't lie." The interviewer leaned forward. "So, what do you say to people who claim you had an advantage?" Jasmine smiled, but there was steel in her eyes. "I say, if you think it's easy, then come and break my record." Jasmine's words went viral within hours. "If you think it's easy, then come and break my record." Clips of the interview spread across Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Sports analysts replayed the moment over and over, dissecting every word. And then, something unexpected happened. The support for Jasmine exploded. Athletes from around the world, track stars, NBA players, even retired Olympians, stood up for her. LeBron James tweeted, "Jasmine Carter is a legend. Period. Let's stop making excuses when black athletes dominate." Serena Williams posted on Instagram, "We've seen this story before. Black women break records and suddenly it's unfair. Stay strong, Jasmine. You earned this." Other female sprinters, some of whom had once competed against Sophia, also spoke out. One even called her out directly. Funny how she never complained about advantages when she was winning. Even sports journalists who had been neutral started to change their tone. The pressure on Sophia grew rapidly. At first, she doubled down, refusing to apologize. But as more and more athletes and experts sided with Jasmine, the tide began to turn. Then came the breaking point. A new video surfaced, an old interview where Sophia had once praised another white athlete for having the perfect sprinter's build. The hypocrisy was undeniable. Within 24 hours, Sophia released a statement, attempting to walk back her comments. "I regret that my words were misinterpreted. I have always respected Jasmine as a competitor, but the damage was done. Her reputation was in shambles." Meanwhile, Jasmine? Her legend only grew. Jasmine sat alone in her hotel room that night, staring at her medal. She had won the race. She had broken the record. She had even won the media battle. So why did she still feel exhausted? She thought back to the little girl she used to be, the one who had posters of track legends on her wall, the one who had dreamed of moments like this. Back then, she had imagined breaking a world record would feel like pure joy. But she hadn't imagined the weight that would come with it. Marcus called her phone. She answered on the second ring. "You good?" he asked. Jasmine let out a breath. Yeah, just thinking. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Jazz, you made history. And yeah, some people tried to take that from you, but they failed. You won. Jasmine nodded to herself. Yeah, I did. She looked at the record board online. 10.48 seconds. Her name was there, cemented in history. And no one, not Sophia, not the critics, not the doubters, could ever take that away. The days following the controversy were a whirlwind. Jasmine's inbox was flooded with messages from young black athletes, thanking her for standing her ground. Parents sent pictures of their daughters practicing sprints, calling her an inspiration. She knew now, this moment was bigger than her. Instead of dwelling on the negativity, she redirected her energy into something meaningful. She announced a new initiative, the Jasmine Carter Scholarship for Young Black Track Stars. The program would help underprivileged athletes with training, equipment, and travel costs. This isn't just about breaking records, she said in an interview. It's about breaking barriers. The announcement went viral, drawing donations from celebrities, sports organizations, and even former Olympians. Jasmine was no longer just a record holder. She was a movement. Meanwhile, Sophia's career took a hit. Endorsement deals started pulling out. Sports networks stopped defending her. While Jasmine was getting calls for brand deals, magazine covers, and event invitations, Sophia's silence became deafening. But Jasmine didn't waste time thinking about her. She had work to do. With newfound confidence, Jasmine focused on what she did best, running. A month after the world record race, she competed in another championship event. Some people wondered if she would crumble under the pressure, if the controversy had drained her. Instead, she dominated. She not only won the race but clocked a time just 0.02 seconds shy of her own record. There was no debate this time. When she crossed the finish line, the crowd erupted, chanting her name. This time, there was no tension, no hesitation, just pure, undeniable victory. Reporters lined up to talk to her, but she only had one thing to say. I let my legs do the talking. Always. The moment solidified her legacy. That night, Jasmine sat on her hotel balcony, looking out over the city lights. She thought about the long road it took to get here. The sacrifices, the doubt, the discrimination. She thought about Sophia, how jealousy and bitterness had cost her everything. And she thought about the next generation of athletes who wouldn't have to fight the same battles alone. Jasmine smiled to herself. She had made history. But more importantly, she had changed the game forever. A week later, she returned home to Atlanta. She visited the track where she first started running as a kid, the place where her father had timed her on an old stopwatch, where her coach first told her she had a gift. She took a deep breath and stepped onto the lane. The air was warm, the track familiar beneath her feet. And then she ran. Not for records, not for cameras, just for her.